What happens when an entire nation is conceived in hatred? When the very foundations of a country are poisoned from the moment of its birth? Today, we're examining Pakistan's inexorable descent into chaos. And this isn't merely another geopolitical analysis. This is the story of how institutionalized hatred literally consumes nations from within. By the end of this exploration, you'll understand why Pakistan isn't simply facing a crisis. It's confronting inevitable collapse. And the most haunting truth? This outcome was always written in its DNA. Let's begin with the contemporary reality unfolding across Pakistan's provinces. Because the statistics paint a picture of nothing short of systematic state failure. In Balochistan, Pakistan's largest and most resource-rich province, we are witnessing what can only be characterized as a full-scale insurgency. The numbers are staggering. 180 attacks in 2024 alone, making it the most violent province in Pakistan. The Baloch Liberation Army recently executed something unprecedented: the hijacking of an entire passenger train carrying 400 souls, resulting in 26 deaths. But this wasn't an isolated incident. It was part of 204 coordinated joint attacks by the newly formed Baloch Raji Ajohi Sangar coalition. The insurgency's systematic targeting of Chinese workers has forced Beijing to reconsider CPEC investments. Over $62 billion in Chinese funding now hangs in the balance as Baloch fighters view CPEC not as development but as economic colonization. And their analysis isn't without merit. China has ensnared Pakistan in such crushing debt that Beijing effectively controls the nation's most strategic assets. Moving northward to Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, the former tribal territories, the statistics are equally alarming. The Pakistani Taliban launched 150 attacks in 2024, with security forces reporting daily casualties along the Afghanistan border. The TTP now controls substantial territory, with Pakistan's military conducting multiple airstrikes on Afghan soil in retaliation. Airstrikes that killed 46 Afghan civilians in December 2024, further destabilizing regional relations. Here lies a profound irony. Pakistan nurtured the Afghan Taliban as strategic assets, believing they could be useful proxies. Now, those same Taliban refuse to constrain their Pakistani cousins, who have expanded their operational capabilities exponentially since the US withdrawal from Afghanistan. In Punjab, supposedly Pakistan's stable heartland, the agricultural crisis has reached critical mass. Over 85% of violence in Pakistan now occurs in border provinces. But Punjab faces its own demons. Massive farmer protests involving hundreds of thousands over electricity tariffs that have increased by 300% since 2022. The agricultural sector that sustains the nation is in revolt because the government, spending 43% of revenue on debt servicing, lacks resources to subsidize basic inputs. Sindh, particularly around Karachi, witnesses ethnic violence as different communities compete for dwindling resources. The metropolis, generating 60% of Pakistan's tax revenue, recorded 45 terrorist attacks in 2024, while unemployment in urban areas has reached 11%. When your economic engine is breaking down, the entire machine stops working. Most remarkably, in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, euphemistically termed Azad Kashmir, we observe mass protests against Pakistani rule itself. Recent demonstrations involved tens of thousands demanding independence from Pakistan, with protesters chanting Pakistan Murdabad, death to Pakistan. The very territory Pakistan claims to have liberated from India, where they've invested billions in military infrastructure, now rebels against its supposed liberators. But here's the most damning statistic. Pakistan now ranks as the 12th most extreme conflict globally, with over 1/5 of its 240 million population exposed to violence. That's nearly 50 million people living under active threat, equivalent to the entire population of South Korea. Now you might reasonably ask, countries face unrest regularly. What makes Pakistan's situation terminal? The answer lies in the numbers, which narrate a story of comprehensive systemic failure. Pakistan's external debt has reached $133 billion, exceeding one-third of the nation's entire economic output. They are dedicating 43% of government revenue merely to interest payments. Imagine your personal finances under such strain, spending nearly half your income solely on credit card interest. How long before bankruptcy becomes inevitable? More damning still, this marks Pakistan's 25th IMF bailout since 1950. At what juncture do we cease calling these interventions bailouts and acknowledge them as life support for a dying state? The brain drain is staggering in its scope. Nearly 1 million Pakistanis emigrated in 2023 alone, not random refugees, but doctors, engineers, the educated professional class. When 37% of your population actively seeks to emigrate, that transcends brain drain. It represents mass repudiation of your entire social contract. Youth unemployment hovers at 8.5% nationally, reaching 11% in urban centers. An entire generation of educated young people confronts futility in their homeland. Historically, this demographic either emigrates or initiates revolutions. What we are witnessing isn't merely multiple isolated crises. It's what analysts term a perfect storm of converging institutional failures. Economically, Pakistan finds itself trapped between Chinese debt servicing and IMF conditionality. Beijing demands repayment, the IMF insists on structural reforms, and Pakistan cannot satisfy either without triggering massive social upheaval. Politically, the military has so thoroughly eviscerated democratic institutions that no legitimate path for course correction remains. They've incarcerated former Prime Minister Imran Khan, manipulated elections, and essentially declared war on their population's democratic aspirations. From a security perspective, Pakistan now confronts active insurgencies across 3 distinct regions: Balochistan, the tribal areas, and Kashmir, while simultaneously managing urban terrorism. Their military forces are stretched beyond any reasonable capacity for effective control. Environmentally, climate change strikes Pakistan with particular severity. The 2022 floods displaced 33 million people, equivalent to Canada's entire population rendered homeless. These aren't isolated weather events. This represents Pakistan's new climatic reality. And here's the global nightmare. Pakistan has more than 170 nuclear warheads. A failing nuclear state is not just a Pakistani problem. It's the world's problem. Pakistan wasn't founded upon any positive vision of its potential future. It was conceived in hatred, specifically what can only be described as an unqualified hatred of Hindus and Hindu civilization, as evidenced by Jinnah's orchestration of partition violence. Consider this fundamental problem. When your entire national identity derives from opposition to others rather than commitment to positive values, you've constructed an inherently unstable foundation. Pakistan defined itself as not India, not Hindu. But what positive vision did it embrace? This founding hatred didn't remain merely historical. It became institutionalized. Contemporary Pakistani textbooks still indoctrinate children that Hindus are inherently cunning and deceptive. Their legal system weaponizes blasphemy laws to terrorize religious minorities. Their educational curriculum erases pre-Islamic history while promoting religious supremacism. The demographic evidence is stark. Hindu population has plummeted from 15% at independence to barely 1.2% today. This isn't natural demographic transition. It's systematic ethnic cleansing through legal discrimination, forced conversions, and state-sanctioned violence. The lesson is clear. You cannot construct sustainable societies upon foundations of hate. Pakistan's tragedy stands as historical proof that when hatred becomes institutionalized, it eventually devours everything, including those who believed they could control it.